What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr Wargames, and today I am bringing you the long awaited and requested update to Dark Magician Branded or Branded Dark Magician. Now the biggest issue with a deck like this is trying to get the balance right where you still maintain Dark Magician and you still maintain Branded on a fair playing field, rather than just going, here's my Branded Dark Magician deck, but it only has Dark Magician and Dragoon in it. That's not Branded Dark Magician, that's Branded with a Dragoon package in it. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you can see more upcoming content. I will also show you a 2-card combo at the end that helps you show the differences between and the combination between the two engines as well, because it does massively differ depending on your playstyle. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the Dark Magician Branded profile. So we start off with, of course, 2 of the Mac Daddy himself, Dark Magician, followed by triple Magician Souls. Now this actually serves so many purposes in the deck. More times than not, you will be using it to get Dark Magician on the board. However, keep in mind it can also be utilized as a Dark on the field should you hard poly into anything like a Lubellion. Then following up with the main normal summon for Dark Magician, and that is Magician's Rod. Now I know you're going to be straight away like, why you only got a 2? Well, the thing is, with a branded version of the deck, you need to find a card that can kind of piece everything together. Sadly, Aluba is all branded, Magician's Rod is all Dark Magician, but there is one card that can balance both Dark Magician and the branded package, and that is, of course, Keeper of Dragon Magic. As you see, you should definitely be playing free. I couldn't find my 3rd copy, really annoyingly. But the reason that Keeper of Dragon Magic is so good is because not only can it revive Dark Magician from the graveyard, but it can also search you out that branded fusion. On top of that as well, it can also help you a follow-up fusion card should you need it in the form of magicalized fusion as well. I'll explain that as we go through the profile and show you the combo at the end of the video. Continue on with the Dark Magician cards. I do play 2 Illusion of Chaos followed by 2 Preparation of Rites. This is entirely up to you on how you want to play it. A lot of people can play 3 Illusion and 1 Rite, or 3 Rites, 1 Illusion. It's entirely up to personal preference. For me, I feel a 2 and 2 works quite nicely because at the end of the day, once I activate Preparation of Rites, unless I'm putting Illusion of Chaos back to the deck using its own effect, I'm always going to have access to it. So next time I see a Preparation of Rites, it's just deck thin. Yes, I know activating Preparation of Rites in this format is very dangerous because of Droll and Lockbird, but this is a deck that you need to kind of take with a pinch of salt. It is not a deck that I would advise you take to a regional or a higher level event because I feel the balance isn't there on the competitive standpoint to compete with the highest level decks. I feel you would be better off going for a single route of Dark Magician control or a single route of branded if you have access to all of these cards I'm showing in front of you. This is for a fun mix to kind of utilize, like I said, legacy deck with modernized decks and getting the best out of both. The last Dark Magician monster that we play is Tamias the United Dragon. Now, obviously, to get the most value out of this, what you kind of really want to do is go Rod into Circle. Circle, just to look at the top 3 cards, is very rare that you're actually going to hit anything off of the Circle, purely because of how its requirements are laid out, and the fact that you are balancing this out with Branded and Dark Magician. So you use Circle just to look at the top 3. If you do get something, a major plus. If not, it's not the end of the world. And then, of course, you Tamias Dragon, getting rid of Circle, getting it on the board, and it is a dragon, so that can then synergize, of course, with Dragoon. And then on top of that as well, it is a light monster, so you can also send it from the deck to the graveyard should you not want it in branded fusion plays as well. Then for the other Dark Magician-esque cards, we've got the 1 Magicalized Fusion. Now the reason I class this more as a Dark Magician card than a branded card is for the fact that it can specifically only special summon spellcasters. So the only spellcasters, believe it or not, which is actually pretty funny, that this card can get is Dragoon and the Dust Dragon. Yeah, that's right. Even though it has dragon in the name, it's actually a spellcaster. So you can technically magicalize fusion into a Dust Dragon, which is really, really funny. So that's the balance between the 2. Ideally, what you're going to be wanting to try and do is either search this off of Keeper of Dragon and Magic, or what you're probably going to get a bit more synergy out of is you're going to go Dust Dragon, and then Dust Dragon will send a Predaplant Chimera Flesia, meaning that during the next standby phase, you search out a magicalized fusion, so that should your opponent clear your entire board off, by this point, you'll have a Dragoon set up in the graveyard. You'll have a Dark Magician and a Dragon. So you then just activate Magicalized Fusion, banish Dark Magician, banish the Dragon, and comes back Mac Daddy Dragoon Boy. So that's just a little preview of the extra deck you'll see a little bit more of later on. Carrying on, of course, we do have the 1 Circle. The one Soul Servant, now I know instantly again a lot of you Dark Magician players out there are going to be screaming in pain. Yes, we only have the one Soul Servant. Now, the reason we're only playing the one of this at this moment in time is because there isn't a direct card that I want to stack that I can't already get through with Rod. The only time that this will benefit me more than Rod is on the ability of activating Soul Servant to stack Secrets of Dark Magic. So that's one argument where you could say, okay, well, I actually want Soul Servant up to 3. Arguably, Soul Servant could even be put up to 2 and you drop Magician's Rod down. The issue with this is, if I open this up with no way of getting Dark Magician to the graveyard, with Branded Fusion, you should have a consistent way to do so, then I can't draw the card I stack. So it's getting that balance right again. If you are constantly through testing, and again, if I do more testing on this and find that I'm constantly being able to get access to Branded Fusion, then Soul Servant into getting into Secret of Dark Magic will be more beneficial for me. The reason the Secret of Dark Magic will actually be more beneficial for you is for the pure fact that because it's searchable off of Rod, technically searchable off of Soul Servant, it actually gives you access through a combo off the back of Keeper of Dragon Magic to get you into a Dragoon, and then also get you into the ability to fuse into something like a Starving Venom if you wanted to play it, or you could even go into a Dracus Tapelia. Again, I'll try and highlight those at the end of the video as well, with a 2-card combo, and then what happens when you add a 3rd card to that combo as well. The final Dark Magician card, of course, is Eternal Soul. This is very risky in this build in the sense that as soon as this goes, your entire board goes. Now, it will go by your card effect, so it won't trigger Mirror Jade. The only card that will remain standing will be a Dragoon. And the reason that a branded Dark Magician version is a little bit better than a direct Dark Magician like Red Eyes Fusion play is because a lot of people are playing stuff like Santa Claus and Kaijus and everything else like that. So being able to just end on a Dragoon now is just not good enough, because 9 times out of 10 you probably will get smacked in the face with a Kaiju, and once that happens, especially with combo decks right now, they just run rampant and it'll be very rare that you see the next turn. So being able to balance your end board with either ways of being able to deal with your opponent's board through back row, or being able to build your front row and defend, you'll be in a much better position. Moving on to the branded cards, or technically the Albaz cards, we do play 2 Albaz and the 1 Aluba. So the Aluba is in here as it is another route to Branded Fusion, but you don't want to be normal summoning it, which is why it's only at 1. The way you want to get to your Aluba is off of your branded opening, and even then, your more ideal target of a branded opening will of course be Quem. So Quem is the namesake of this. She is part of the cog alongside Cartesia that will allow this to constantly keep ticking. The reason that is so good is technically Cartesia gives you access to fuse any card. You don't even need to use herself, but it will give you access to Dust Dragon, but it can also, with access to a Dark Magician and a Dragon, give you access to a Dragoon. Unfortunately, until we get a card that is basically like a contact fuse card, or we have a additional counterpart to something like Dragoon, that is your go-to for the Dark Magician basic battlefield. So balancing these all out, with branded opening, you've got 2 main targets with Aluba and of course Quem. On top of that as well, there is a card that we are playing that is, the idea behind this is to gain as much advantage as possible when you're activating discard effects. So your discard effect of Keeper of Dragon Magic plus branded opening, straight away you're already down 4 cards from your opening hand. So you need to make sure that whatever you're discarding is maintaining or giving you back a bit of advantage, which is why we are also playing the Edge Imp package. And it's why I'm going with a max route of Edge Imp Chain, followed by 1 Poly and 1 Patchwork. Now the reason that this is so important is for the pure fact that offers something like Keeper of Dragon Magic, not only can I set up my plays through Branded Fusion, but I can also gain advantage off of the back of the Edge Imp Chain, because straight away Patchwork will give me access to Poly, and then going second gives me access to Guardian Chimera, whereas going first, it gives me a guaranteed discard in my hand by giving me an Edge Imp Chain for my Dragoon, and then allows me to fuse into Dragoon while also setting up end phase Quem plays, and that is going to allow you to get a Cartesia for your opponent's turn, and that Cartesia is then going to be able to loop around. Not to mention, if your opponent foolishly gets rid of Dragoon first and then summons something from the extra deck, Quem can then just bring back Dragoon, and you're like, okay, welcome back. So carrying on with the branded cards, of course, we are playing triple Branded Fusion. Pretty straightforward and simple on that one, not much more needs to be said. We are playing 2 Fusion Deployment alongside 2 Nadir Servant, and the reason we've only got a 2 and a 2 is again for the pure fact, yes, it's all well and good searching out the Quem, but if you can't get the Quem to the board, you're going to struggle a little bit. So you want to balance out the Nadir Servant with all of the other access of your normal summon monsters. In a normal branded build, the idea is that your normal summon would be a Luba, and if you open up Branded Fusion, that gets Ash, you then fall back on the Dear Servant. Whereas with a deck like this, you've got Keeper of Dragon Magic as your normal summon, you also have Magician's Rod as your normal summon, so you're trying to make sure you don't clog yourself down with too many normal summons. And in theory, Nadir Servant is technically a normal summon card because you're only going to want to go for Quem. That being said, again, as well, you only have one target in the deck, so you don't really want to play 3 Nadir Servants. It's not something that you rely on. As you'll see in the combo, getting to Quem is actually really easy in the deck. It's just one of them fallbacks that should your Branded Fusion get stopped, you do have a route to go for. Fusion deployments, what makes this so good is it gives you direct access to Albaz, Dark Magician, and Cartesia. But again, as you'll see in the combo, it's actually very easy to get to Cartesia down a specific route, so you don't need to rely on it as heavily. So a 2 and a 2, again, it works out quite nicely just to give you that balance. The final 2 cards is the one Branded Lost and the one Bestial Lubellion. And if you don't have access to Lubellion, you can bump up Lost to 2 if you want to, or put in another Bestial, or just cut it completely. The reason I've got it in here is to go back to those good old-fashioned, if I do need to go Branded Fusion, send Albaz, send Lubellion, I can then get Lubellion back to give me the Branded Lost, and that gives me another direct route into Quem or Cartesia, and straight away, Cartesia being able to special summon herself down to the board. If I bring back Lubellion, for example, get my Branded Lost, conduct a Fusion play, that will then allow me to search out Cartesia. As long as I have left Albaz in the graveyard, I can special summon down the Cartesia and then use her effect to fuse Dark Magician in my hand, on my field, anywhere with the Lubellion to give me a Dragoon. So I'm just getting more consistent access to a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. So that's it for the main list. Moving on to the extra deck. So on the extra deck, of course, we are playing 2 Dragoons. So you've got loads of routes to get into this. Route number 1, of course, is Branded Fusion into Albion or Lubellion. More so Lubellion, sorry, because you need to send the Dark in order to give you your Dark Magician. One of the routes that you want to make as more consistent as possible is you do have a route to get into it through Branded Fusion. Of course, with normal polymerization. Of course, Magicalized Fusion as a follow-up, and then going down the Dark Magician route, you also have Secrets of Dark Magic, not to mention Cartesia as well. So you're basically increasing your consistent factors to get there. You've got your free Branded Fusion, but then you're also following up with a Dark Magician route can get to it. A route through Branded can give you a backup for a follow-up turn, and then of course a route through Branded can allow you to Dragoon during your turn or your opponent's turn, depending on where your Dark Magician is. Not to mention as well, keep this in mind, that if you did have Quem on the board and you had to get you also had an Eternal Soul, as long as your opponent can't stop the Eternal Soul, in theory, you could Quem, bring back Cartesia, and then Eternal Soul, bring back Dark Magician. As long as you have a Dragon on the board, Cartesia, or even in the hand, Cartesia can then fuse with those. And again, that's another bit of useful utility for Keeper of Dragon Magic. For the other Dark Magician cards, we do play the one Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight. So being able to protect the back row with stuff like this means that they can't just end phase pop your Secret of Dark Magic before you have a chance to activate it, and it also gives you protection from Eternal Soul. It's not a card you absolutely have to play. There is flexibility in the extra deck, so it's entirely up to you. And speaking of flexibility, one of them is, of course, the Dark Magicians. This is just entirely up to you, personal preference. It could be very, very funny actually being able to draw a Branded Fusion off of the Dark Magicians and then being able to activate that turn and go absolutely ham. But it's just, again, this is more so like additional flex to maintain Dark Magician involvement of the deck. Then, of course, we've got the Drakus Depelia. So as I explained in the combo, if you were to add Secrets of Dark Magic or a route to Dark Magician, the issue you've then got is your Secrets of Dark Magic needs to use Dark Magician, but it means you can save your polymerization to fuse with another card in order to make a Drakus Depelia. So I'll show you that in the end. It will take away your discard for the Dragoon, but then you should have follow-up with the rest of your hand as well. Then for the branded cards, we've got Mirror Jade. Of course, we've got Albion. We've then got Lubellion. And then two of the more important cards, more so than these, is the one Titaniclad, the Ash Dragon. The reason this is important is if you don't have that discard, you can actually activate Branded Fusion to summon out Titaniclad, send in Dark Magician, and you'll see this in the combo at the end, that Keeper of Dragon Magic is already doing the job for you in order to revive that Dark Magician and search you out that Branded Fusion. So being able to actually make Titaniclad, rather than ripping a card from your hand for Lubellion, can still give you access into Titaniclad, get into the graveyard, and the reason that's important is because during the end phase, it can special summon a Dogmatika or Fallen of Albaz. And that's where Quen comes into play because she's always treated as a Dogmatika or a Despia card. So in your end phase, not only will you end up with a Dragoon and a guaranteed card in the hand, but you can then all add to your board the ability of being able to get a Quen with a Cartesia set ready in the graveyard. That is how the example of if you open up Eternal Soul or Root to it, you can then activate it, bring back Dark Magician, and then you've got Cartesia to give you a second Dragoon during your opponent's turn. Again, this will all be clear during the end. Then, of course, the last one we've got for the branded cards is Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. The reason that this is so good, yes, it does require specifically a light spellcaster. So if you really wanted to, you could play mana in the deck, because being able to activate Branded Fusion as a follow-up play and making the Albion Dragon send in a mana can sort out 2 draws off of the back of the Soul Servant, but also it gives you the ability to bring back Dragoon as well. Then, of course, we do have the one Guardian Chimera, and then we also have the one Predaplant Chimera Flesia, which I've briefly talked about, and the one Gurdnal the Dust Dragon. This is actually insanely powerful. The fact that it's a spellcaster, as I've already mentioned, has some other additional synergy with the deck, but the idea is off the back of this, where in previous builds you might want to send Dark Magician from the deck, you might want to send Albion from the extra deck, you kind of want to send Chimera Flesia for a follow-up of the next turn, or you can send a Titaniclad or Lulu Walith. Again, sending either of these just gives you access to Cartesia or Quen, so it's just making sure you've got consistent routes to it. Lulu Walith is, of course, a little bit flexible in this deck. You can make something like Mud Dragon, you can put in more branded targets, you can put in a second Mirror Jade if you wanted to. That is entirely up to you. And then the final card I've got in here is just because it's fun, and being able to make my Dragoon and not be able to be destroyed by battle is incredibly funny. And that is, of course, Chaos Angel. Now, again, a lot of you are going to be like, what? How the hell can you do this? Well, very simple. Normal summon Rod, and then activate Magician Souls to summon out Dark Magician. Free Chaos Angel, baby. So you get to Chaos Angel. Imagine throughout that play, you've been able, obviously, you won't be able to Branded Fuse that turn, but being able to go, okay, cool, let's make Chaos Angel this turn, nothing can be destroyed by battle, let's build a wall, and then the next turn, let's go Branded and push for OTK. Or, if you wanted to, you could put a 2 on the board, and that would then be so that's the trap card from the Bestials. That will then allow you to sync during your opponent's turn, but that would then give you access to go into a Chaos Angel. The idea is it's just one of them win more cards. If you don't have access to it, don't worry. Again, flex spot, change it up to whatever you see fit. I just thought it'd be pretty funny to be able to go, let's say we went the long route around, so we don't fusion lock ourselves, we do have a route to Dragoon through Secrets of Dark Magic, or heck, even Magicalized Fusion, and then also have a Chaos Angel on the board. That is funny. Like, literally just go normal summon Rod, Rod get you, have Dark Magician on the board through Magician Souls, go into Chaos Angel, activate Magicalized Fusion, banish a Dragon, banish Dark Magician, you got Dragoon plus Chaos Angel. Again, like I said, it's a win more card, but I thought it was a kind of funny option that if you've got access to it, give it a go, see what you feel. Heck, I'm highly tempted to look at a Dark Magician Synchro version as well. So that is it for the profile. Now let me show you a justified 2-card combo for the deck as well. So the 2-card combo, ironically it doesn't involve any Dark Magician or branded cards, but this is why it's so important to be playing these two, as this is the glue that holds both of those engines together. So we start off by simply normal summoning Keeper of Dragon Magic, and using its effect you discard the chains, and this will allow you to add Branded Fusion. Off of this is when you're going to trigger the chains effect, and this is going to allow you to search out Patchwork. Yes, I know this combo isn't going to be ideal for the Draw and Lockbird format, but this is just something to kind of consider at local environment. Like I said, if you want to take these decks to push them as far as it can possibly go, you're better off with a pure Dark Magician or a pure Branded. At this point, it's entirely up to you whether you activate Branded Fusion or Patchwork first. I'm going to activate Patchwork just to be able to get my chains and, of course, the polymerization from the deck. You're then going to activate your Branded Fusion. You're going to send from the deck to the graveyard Dark Magician and, of course, Albaz. This would normally make you go into Lubellion, but we're going to maintain our hand advantage to make sure that it is exactly a 2-card combo. Not a 2-card combo plus the rest of your hand in order to have discards for Dragoon. Exactly 2 cards will allow you to have a Dragoon negate and everything else that follows. So straight away you're going to go into Titaniclad, which is Albaz plus a monster with 2500 or more attack. Perfect for the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. At this point, what you then want to do is you then want to be able to activate the Keeper of Dragon Magic. You could, if you wanted to, set the Albaz and hard poly into a Lubellion. And the reason you would do something like that is that then gives you the ability to recycle materials, discard another card that you've guaranteed to have off of the Edge Imp chain, and actually go down into your branded plays rather than your Dragoon play. But in this scenario, I am going to go into my Dragoon play and we're going to set the Dark Magician. At this point, this is when you want to activate Polymerization, and you specifically want to use Titaniclad and Dark Magician to go into Dragoon. Now this is obviously where you've got your Mac Daddy negate already, and you've got Edge Imp in the hand, which is your guaranteed discard. You're then going to move to the end phase. Now in the end phase, this is where Titaniclad will now trigger, and this will allow you to summon out a Dogmatika monster from the deck. Funnily enough, Quem is always treated as a Dogmatika card. So on the summon of Quem, you'll then use her effect to send from the deck to the graveyard Cartesia, meaning you've got a follow-up play during your opponent's turn. So quite simply, as soon as your opponent summons a monster from the extra deck, you can then trigger Quem's effect, which will allow you to bring back the Cartesia from the graveyard. You could bring back Titaniclad, heck, you could even bring back Albaz or Dark Magician. So if you wanted to bring back the Albaz and you used more of your cards in the hand, you could Contact Fuse into a Mirror Jade. But again, this combo is to purely highlight exactly what you have with the base minimum. So we still maintain the negate off of Dragoon, while also being able to activate Cartesia's effect to allow you to fusion summon. Now ideally, the two fusion targets you're going to want to use are herself plus the Keeper of Dragon Magic. You want to leave Quem on the board because she will constantly keep recycling. Off of the back of this is when you're then going to be able to summon out your Dusk Dragon. You're then going to use Dusk Dragon's effect to send from the extra deck to the graveyard your Chimera Flesia. Now if you want to follow up so that your next turn involves a Mirror Jade rather than a second Dragoon, then of course you can send Albion, which will set or add Branded Fusion. We're going to keep this Dark Magician themed, which is why we're going to be able to set up during our next turn the ability to get into a second Dragoon. Keep in mind, at this moment in time, we still have the negate of Dragoon and we still have the Dusk Dragon tag out into Lulu Walleth. We'll then move to the end phase, and because a fusion monster was sent from the extra deck to the graveyard, we'll also be able to recycle the Cartesia. In doing so, when it moves to our turn, we will draw one random card, and on top of that, we'll then, during the standby phase, be able to resolve Chimera Flesia to add a Magicalized Fusion. So this is your exact hand advantage from drawing from turn and everything else. At this point, it depends on how far you want to push and how far you want to go. Because very simply, you still have Albaz in the graveyard, so you can special summon down the Cartesia. You can use Cartesia's effect to fuse the Dusk Dragon plus the Chain, and this will allow you to go into a Dracus Tapelia. You'll then be able to activate the Magicalized Fusion, and this can then go into anything you want, as long as it is spellcaster related. So ideally, you could go rid of your Dark Magician plus a spellcaster in the form of Cartesia from the field and go into the Dark Magicians. Or, of course, what you're going to want to do more times than not is banish your Dark Magician plus a Dragon, so Keeper of Dragon Magic, and this will then allow you to go into a second Dragoon. Now, keeping in mind, at this moment in time, we now only have one card left, and if we use this during our opponent's turn to discard a card in order to negate, we would have nothing left bar the remaining cards of our opening hand. So in that scenario, you might want to hold some back, but keeping in mind, both these Dragoons have been made with Dark Magician legally, so they can use their effect to non-target, destroy one monster your opponent controls, and then burn them for the attack. Keep in mind as well, we haven't even fusion locked ourselves, so if you really wanted to, you could synchro and go into something like, if you're able to get a level 10, you go into Chaos Angel, but because you have access to a level 12, you can't even hard sync into a Lulu Walleth. So that's your one route to this kind of board. If you wanted to reset this a little bit, and I'm just going to take it back to the Titaniclad phase, which means we have Titaniclad on the board, we have Poly in our hand, we have Chain in our hand, we have Keeper on the board, and then we have Dark Magician, Branded Fusion, and of course we have a Chain in the graveyard. There we go, with an Albaz. So at this point here, if you were to add to your hand as well a Soul Servant, this will then give you the ability to activate Soul Servant and stack to the top of your deck Secrets of Dark Magic. Before you bring back the Dark Magician, banish the Soul Servant to draw one card because you have the Dark Magician in the graveyard, which will, funny enough, give you the card you've literally just stacked. It's now at this point you want to activate Keeper's effect to set the Dark Magician. But rather than activating Polymerization to fuse with Dark Magician, activate Secrets of Dark Magic, and this will then allow you to still use the Titaniclad if you want to, but hold it back because you're going to want to use Keeper plus Dark Magician to give you the Dragoon. You'll then activate the Polymerization to use the Chain plus the Ash Dragon, and this will then give you a Dracus Tapelia. So what you've done by adding the one card of Soul Servant to the hand is get an additional fusion, but the drawback to that is you then will need your remaining two cards in your hand that would have been drawn for turn in order to fulfill your Dark Magician negate, and then one card of whatever you see fit. So it's very important that you've gone from a 2-card combo to technically a 4-card combo. So they are the exact facts of the matter, which is why the 2-card combo is so important. It is something that if you wanted to increase the consistency of ending a board like this, or heck, even if you wanted to just search out the secrets and not actually activate it, but set it so that it's ready to go during your opponent's turn to even go into a Dracostapelia, should they get rid of one of your monsters, as long as you maintain a Dark Magician, you're good to go with it. But the idea is that you're going to go into the Dragoon and hold back the Poly. So that is it for the profile and the combo. I hope this has given you a bit of an insight into this particular type of the build. And if you do have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. It's definitely a fun deck that I love combining both of these together in order to produce a board like this and produce a deck like this, because I get the fun of my Legacy deck alongside the fun of my most recent Fusion build. And I really do like the lore of Albaz and everything in between. So for now, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.